Good day. This is James Gilliland broadcasting live from Australia. Actually, they say Australia over here. They don't do the Aus. But throwing a snag on the Barbie and welcoming everybody to the As You Wish Talk Radio. There's a lot of things happening. I wanted to first get through some of the ranch news, and I'm going to bring Ashley on because she has more of a handle on what's going on at the ranch, being that I'm in Australia. But we've had some pretty crazy weather and snow and rain damage and flooding and all kinds of things. And so she can give us an update on that, as well as a few other things about upcoming events. So I'd like to get this out of the way in the beginning, and then we're going to go into kind of what's been happening in the news, with the Oregon standoff and a few other things, and just other big events that are happening. So, give you a bigger picture to look at on why all this is happening. So anyway, without any further ado, Ashley, you're with us. Hello, Ashley.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you with us?
Okay, you got me? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right,
you're on.
All right.
Good. Hey, you're on, so take it away with what's happening at the ranch.
Technology, you got to love it, right?
Yeah.
So as many of you know that are on the ESETI newsletter or follow James's Facebook page, it's been an interesting winter for the ranch. We first got hit with a flood back in early December that turned the yak field into a big swimming pool and put water into the basement of the conference hall, flooded some of the yurts, and created a big river running parallel down the driveway. And it was all fun, and, we kept James up to date on it, and shout out to Brittany and Jeff and Dan who were at the ranch taking care of things while Joseph and I suffer in Maui and James is spreading the light in Australia. And then in January, we got a picture sent to us from Brittany and Jeff of the greenhouse roof. The whole roof completely collapsed, the aquaponics destroyed, and some other damage done to the buildings from a huge snowstorm that accumulated, and then it thawed and then froze and got heavy. And so we were just brainstorming, James and I and the crew, trying to figure out what to do going forward. And someone suggested that we reach out to you all, the ESETI community. And so we've done that with a GoFundMe project, gofundme.com/ESETI-repairs. And it's only been up a couple of days, and I know, James, you feel like I do, kind of overwhelmed with the response that we've gotten from everybody so far.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's been reaching out and sharing some of their memories of ESETI and sending donations. And if whatever you can donate, and if you can't, that's fine too. Just keep us in your prayers and in your thoughts. But with the fundraising goal, we're already over halfway there. And so we will be opening on time in the spring. It's not going to keep us from opening, but it is going to be a little bit of an expense to get all those repairs done. And if we do go over our target, then James' plan is to build additional accommodations. We've been having to turn people away some weekends in the summertime. And so with some additional accommodations and then some new technology for night vision and for James's filming. So we just want to give a big shout out. James, I know you have expressed your thanks to everyone that has so far made a donation. But again, if you're drawn to do so, or if you just want to see the video where I'm talking about how the flood is pouring down the side of the ranch, it's gofundme.com/ESETI-repairs. And one of the other things that we're going to do is a thank you to those that have donated or do donate between now and March 1st. Is in early March, February 20th, between now and February 20th, we're going to set up a teleconference call with James. We've been talking about doing this for a while because we oftentimes get emails from people who have wanted to talk to James, and he will be doing a call-in show tonight if there is time with all the information. But we are going to be setting up a monthly call-in. And so for those that do donate or have donated, as little or as much as you can, it doesn't have to be a big number. Every little bit helps if you feel drawn to do so. James hates asking for money, so but we are doing a call-out. This teleconference call that's happening will be a 2-hour call. James will give an update. Then it'll be about an hour of your questions and James responding. and then he'll do either a healing or a meditation at the end. So that's our thank you. I'll be sending out a newsletter to that on Monday. So again, if you can make a donation, every little bit helps. And just once again, the website is gofundme.com/ESETI-repairs. Or you can go to privateinvitationeseti.com and follow the link on the first page. As you know, as you've been following along, James is in Australia, and he's Australia, as he says. That's the Melbourne side. See, when I lived in Sydney, we didn't quite say Australia, but that's all right. James is doing workshops in Skywatch through New South Wales and Queensland coming up. He'll be in Sydney next weekend, then Coffs Harbour, Brisbane, and Mount Sampson. For those of you that are down under or over in the land of the long white cloud in New Zealand, if you want to pop over. For information, go to Peter Maxwell Slattery's website, ESETIAustralia.org, and also a shout-out to Peter and Sol for all their help with James while he's in Australia. If you're in Hawaii, and I know we do have a lot of listeners from Hawaii because James has been here often, on March the 3rd in the evening, James will be talking at the Temple of Peace in Haiku, and I'll be sending out a blurb on that by February 3rd. And for those of you in the Midwest, James hasn't had a chance really to get out to the Midwest much, and I don't know that March is necessarily the best time to do it, but James will be at the Awake and Empowered Expo in Detroit, March 18th to 20th. He'll be on the speaker schedule along with his friends Laura Eisenhower and also Winston Shrout. So he'd love to see as many of you that can come on out. That's the Awake and Empowered Expo in Detroit the weekend of March 18th to 20th. James won't be at the UFO Congress in Arizona this February because of his conflict with Australia, but we will have a table. Cassandra and Tashina will be manning the ESETI table at the UFO Congress in Scottsdale in mid-February. So if you happen to be there, stop by, give Cassandra and Tashina a hug, yeah? With what's been going on at the ranch, I'm a little bit behind on email, so those will be getting caught up as well as the website in the next week. And finally, many of you have also emailed or called about coming out and helping out physically, and we really appreciate that. I mean, we really appreciate all the responses and your thoughts that we've gotten with this project and repairing the ranch. Work crews won't happen until probably early April, but we will send out a call again over the newsletter, and we do appreciate your help with that. So from James and myself and all the ESETI crew, from our heart to yours, thank you for your support. We hope it all comes back to you 1,000-fold. And with that, James, I will say good night so that you can get on with the meat of the matter.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley, for all the work and holding everything together. And Ashley's like the one of the main foundational people for ESETI, and without her, we'd probably be pulling our hair out and going crazy and running around with our pants on fire or something. I don't know. She keeps it all together for us.
Well, we have a good laugh anyways. And I think the thing is, James, you are so committed to your mission, and I know you won't let this storm damage keep you from doing that, especially what's coming on. So thank you. I love you too, and you have a great show. I'll listen in on the online, okay? And thank you for those that are already making donations. Donations are coming in as we speak, so thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Well, anyway, folks, that's Ashley with the ranch there. She's the one most of you talk to when you're, trying to sign up for counseling sessions and find out about reservations and conferences and things of that nature. So anyway, Ashley and Joseph and, the kids back at the ranch and everything else are all holding it together. And Dan, while I'm gone. The reason we aren't going to start up things because we're going to wait till I get back. I'll probably be back there a little while in March and trying to assess everything and find out what we need to do. But the weather's so bad right now and the snow is so deep. It's just no sense in trying to do anything right now until, right now everything's kind of just in survival mode, to get through winter. If you are in the local area and you do have a cord of wood or some dry wood, feel free to drop it on by. At the ranch, you can go ahead and email. We're looking for. We're willing to buy it. No problem. But we're really running low on wood because when the greenhouse did crash, it took out. It just probably 3 or 4 feet of snow and water and rain just dumped on the wood that we did have stored to get through winter. So it's going to be a tight one, but nonetheless, we'll make it. Again, I just want to thank all the people that have donated. It really makes me feel awesome about continuing and doing this work. You just have so much stuff coming down on you, one thing after another. If it's not the chemtrails, the psychotronics, you name it, the government, everything, all the hassles we've had to do just to keep the doors open, and then nature comes by and waxes, which, is that doesn't really bother me so much, but it is just an added thing, a major thing we got to get over and get through. But it just, when I see everybody jumping in and helping out and supporting, it's just amazing. It really warms my heart and makes me want to continue to give back and continue to move forward, with the mission, which is the awakening and healing of humanity, the earth, and public acclamation to the higher dimensional beings that are here to help. I wanted to cover a couple things before we go too much further. Everybody's been just slamming with emails to find out about what's happening, with the Bundy situation, and it's, we got to look at the big picture to figure this out. One, I'll go into the bigger picture after this, but I just want to get some details out there that I do know. And this is all over the internet. This isn't anything. It's well documented and everything. But the real issue is a lot of it's Agenda 21, which is a farce. Actually, it's a farce to take the land away from the people and put it in the hands of the government, which is actually selling the land to China and Russia and other countries to service the debt and all the funny money they printed and everything else. So it's just a big mess. But the big issue is uranium. And there's a company called, I believe, Uranium One, which is a Canadian company that was bought by the Russians, and now it's Russian-owned. But Hillary sold the mining rights, the mineral rights to that area, and in return, Uranium One has been making huge donations to the Clinton Foundation. The only problem with this is that the Hammonds and the Bundys own these mega ranches that are on the land which they want to utilize, for these operations. And there's more than that. I mean, there's a huge solar farm from China that wants to be put in, and other things. But the whole problem is that you have private landowners that are standing in the way of these mega deals, and they've already taken a lot of money. A lot of politicians have taken a lot of money to put these things into place, and they use the BLM as a toy, to make these things happen. So we really need to look at the big picture. It is so corrupt. It is so ugly. It's beyond imagination almost when you see how corrupt this is. But when you look at the history of the parties involved, it's totally understandable. But the Hammonds and the Bundys have huge land tracts, and they're farmers and ranchers and things like that. Well, the BLM set fires to burn out a lot of the pasture lands to keep them from having grazing their cattle and things like that. And the fires were so bad that the Hammonds built some backfires so they wouldn't lose their ranches and other things, just because of all the other fires that were getting out of control. Now, I don't understand why the Hammonds would have to go to jail for setting a backfire to try to protect their land when against the BLM, who are setting the fires in the first place, that they have to worry about. And why aren't the people in the BLM that their fires got away from them and caused all these other problems, why aren't they in jail? It makes no sense. It's unless you know the big picture. So anyway, the courts should go both ways. If these guys set fires that got away and destroyed a whole bunch of grazing land, putting the ranchers out of business, then they should be in jail as well. But of course they aren't. And now the Bundys, this is really interesting. They went in there and they said that they used the tortoise as a ruse, to stop the Bundys from grazing their cattle. And they asked all the locals to collect all the tortoises and bring them in, to preserve them. And then they said, we can't afford to feed all the tortoises, so they euthanized them. And then now they're saying that this tortoise is an endangered species. We can't have grazing on the land because it's ruining the tortoise habitat. Well, they just killed the tortoise. They pretty much wiped out the tortoise with their shenanigans so they could use it as a tool to shut down, the Bundys. And these are the games that they play. If they're so worried about the tortoise, why did they euthanize all the ones that were brought in? Why didn't they put them back out, onto the land? Now, another thing, if anybody's a rancher, I own a ranch, and I'll tell you, if you take a desolate field and you throw 3 or 4 cows on there, that field is going to come back really lush. I mean, the cows alone, they help kind of dig up the soil a little bit. They all the crap they put on, the pee they put on the land and everything else, everything starts flourishing. Yeah, they do eat it down, but it just keeps coming back, and it comes back stronger. So, turtles eating grass and things like that, cows are not a problem. They're not going to, and they're not going to be playing, football with the tortoise either. Cows are not, they're not going to go around stomping tortoises. They don't, they don't do that. So anyway, so it doesn't make any sense whatsoever when you look at this unless you know the big picture. Anyway, so again, the things that are going on there are beyond crazy. And when I heard about what they did to the tortoises, there's something about me that I have a real problem when people are destroying animals and wildlife and things like that. I know humans go to heaven, I know animals go to heaven and everything else, but come on, I mean, they have no say so. They have no say so whatsoever, and we're going in there and pulling these stunts. And the very people that we believe are taking care of the public lands are actually destroying them, and they're using them for their own self-interest. And so we need to figure that out and wake up. The government is not supposed to be owning these lands anyway. They can only own, what is within the confines of Washington, D.C., and whatever buildings they may need for administration purposes. That's it. They can't own these giant tracts of land. It's totally unconstitutional for them to do so. And this was the very reason why it is unconstitutional for them to have these big giant tracts of land. So you can look up that too. There's a lot of legal premises on that as well. So anyway, the main story, that what I saw there, is the Hammonds and the Bundys were on their way to a meeting that would have resolved the matter peacefully. And they were having a meeting with, the powers that be, the FBI and the sheriff and everything. And they're also going to the local towns meeting too, and talking to the people about what's really going on. The real disruption was not coming from the Bundys or their group, or the Oregon standoff. It was coming from the other people that came in, the 200 FBI trucks that came in, the other people posing as militiamen, all this stuff. There's a lot of nonsense going on. There's always actors and everything else, and that came up. They actually were showing these videos of these things going on there that supposedly the other people that were trying to get this information out about what's happening to our forests and everything else, and they had actors posing as different agents and things like that. It was really a mess, and they always do that. So if any false flag thing or any twisted thing, they bring in the actors. So anyway, so we got that going on. And then there's a, the whole thing would have had a peaceful resolution. They're on their way to say, okay, we're most likely they were saying that we're going to leave. We're going to have a peaceful resolution on this. It's going to be in the courts, from here on out. And anyway, so on the way to have this meeting, they were ambushed, and according to the eyewitnesses that leaked out, is that the car. First, they pulled over and they started shooting at the car and just pretty much riddled it with bullets. And then they took off to get out of there. And then they shot at him again. And, after that, and so, they didn't fire any shots on the inside. All the shots are fired externally. But you need to know why this happened. And the ambush, it failed. Everybody was on the floorboards. They all got down because they knew this was coming. And they already fired a couple shots at the car. So anyway, so they're all on the floorboard and unfortunately, all except for one, Lavoy Finnegan, they lived. I think there was one wounded and a couple other minor things going on, but Lavoy Finnegan, didn't fare too well. So he came out with his hands in the air. And he's waving his hands in the snow, kind of wavering back and forth. And the film shows, from what I've seen, and I can't say this directly, it looks as though he was shot from the back. and they're saying he was reaching in his side for for a 9 millimeter in his jacket and things like that. You can't really tell. There was no weapon drawn. There was no visible sight of any weapon or anything else in the video. And so obviously he didn't pose a threat. They had about 10, rifles and guns on him. If you would have pulled a gun out, everybody would have cut loose. So there was really no reason for them to fire on him like that. And after he went down, they riddled him with bullets while he was on the ground, which is, that doesn't, that's not law enforcement. That's called assassination. It's different, and there are rules for engagement that they broke. So anyway, we have to look at this when you see the big picture. Where did this happen in the past? When Hitler was involved in assassinating men, women, and children. Look at Waco, same thing. So now you've got a major CIA drug operation, from Arkansas. This too is common knowledge. Everybody knows about this. They had to move it because there was a lot of heat going on, so they moved it to Waco. And the Branch Davidians and the other guys had the goods. They came out with a CD with all the evidence, trying to give it to the FBI, and they would not look at it. They just shot them to pieces. So anyway, again, they can't have any witnesses. They have to destroy and totally annihilate all people involved, and that was what they tried to do. Only this time they failed. And so now they've got these people in custody, and I'm really hoping the public puts a heavy pressure on them to make sure of the safety of these people. And some of them, one of the women actually already gave testimony as to what happened, and it's all over the internet. So the cat's out of the bag, on what was trying to be done there. So anyway, so now we have the same thing, in the Waco incident. They burned the building, and any women, even children, women with babies, they just assassinated them. They killed everybody, and they just put a pretty heavy hand on anybody outside the organization that they didn't kill, to make sure everything was quieted down and shut up. So anyway, that's basically the name of the game. And where it goes from here, I don't know. Nobody knows, but I think the people need to rise up and just say enough's enough. The corruption is just so deep and so far, and it's so ridiculous. I mean, your property rights, every right there that we have was just totally ignored and diminished, and now it's basically, if you don't play ball, if you don't sell out, the brute squad will come in and kill you, and the politicians get their payoffs. They all get their cash and payoffs, and anybody that's going to expose it is going to be, used for target practice. That's basically the name of the game. But this is all coming out and being exposed. So the things I'm telling you right now are all coming out. It's not, I don't have any, hotline for this stuff to come out, on what's really happening. But I know we ran into a lot of this Agenda 21 at the ranch. We had to deal with this personally, where they tried to take over our ranch and shut us down, and they used, other government agencies and building, departments and things like that to just make our life miserable, do everything they could to shut us down and get us out of there. And so it's the same old thing, it's the same program going on. So, these guys stood up for it. They said, no, we're not giving up our land. No, you're not going to put us out of business. No, you're not going to destroy our grazing land and destroy our cows, which they did, and burn our cows and push them into pits, and with bulldozers, they said, you're not going to do that. And so they took a stand. But anyway, it's all about Agenda 21. It's all about politicians with their hands really dirty that have actually sold private land and promised private land to outside resources, to China and Russia, and mineral rights and mining. And this is what it's all about. It's a much bigger picture. So when you see them trying to demonize these people and make them look like radicals and crazy people, they're not crazy. They know what they're doing. They know what they're up against. They know who's behind it. And they're just American, people, honest as the day is long, salt of the earth people. And if you really look at the family message put out, by Lavoy Finnegan, his his family's message. If you just Google family message from Lavoy Finnegan family, listen to it. This guy is a father. He raised his children. He had over 50 foster children that he helped out. He was salt of the earth, honest as day, good Christian guy. It's like there's no dirt on this guy. They can't paint him as much as they try to paint this guy as a psychopath or crazy. They can't. He is what America is all about. It's always been about. And so anyway, I'm really hoping that people see through this mess and the twisting programs. Even Fox News covered the Hillary situation, selling the ore, the uranium ore to the Russians and through the Canadian company. All of the stuff is out. It's all out now. So it's like there's no way of stopping it. And that's the good news, is it's all out. So anyway, that's my take on the story. I know there's going to be some more evidence coming out. My own take on it, whoever's involved in this assassination attempt needs to be held personally accountable, and it has to go all the way to the top. There has to be some kind of investigation into this, and it can't be done within the system because the system is so corrupt, the judicial system and the political system, you're never going to get, anything fair and just out of it. So, and which is about ready to change too as well. So anyway, going into the big picture, the big picture is there's this extreme energy coming in, a higher consciousness and energy that's coming in. And this energy is pushing everything up to the surface. And we knew this was coming. So all the dirt and all the greed and all the shenanigans, of the corporations and the politicians and everything is all coming up. They can't hide anymore. It's being shoved right in the people's face. And eventually the people are going to be shocked, and then they're going to feel like a sense of apathy, like it's just too big, what am I going to do? And then finally enough of them are going to get pissed and we're going to have a revolution, basically. I'm hoping it's a peaceful revolution and the military will step in and do what they're supposed to do and take care of this nonsense and all the treasonous acts that are going on. But, and that's what I'm hoping, that it's a peaceful solution and that we just get rid of these guys, and bring in something that's functional, something that actually works for the people. But, our government was hijacked a long time ago by a corporation, and the Republic, of, the United States of America, which is a republic, has been overshadowed and totally compromised and taken over by the United States corporation. So I see that going down. The corporation's broke. It can't continue where it's going. It's created all this fiat money with no backing. And with the BRICS Union and the other people coming up, stepping up to the plate, they can no longer function, in that system. So their own corruption has taken them down. And that's, that's the prophecies. The beast, consumes itself in the end. It can't feed itself. It's just gotten too big. And so, as I said before, the puppet masters are being taken out. The Archon network is being torn up, the draconian, rule, and these other demonic type energies that have been running the puppets, which are the politicians, and the major corporations, all that stuff. All that stuff is coming down. It's being unraveled from the top down. So now they're floundering, and they're not very good at covering up their tracks anymore, and they're making all kinds of mistakes, and everything is surfacing. So this is just part of that process. It's a big cleanup process. It's the crap coming up to look at. It's like a soup. When you make a soup, all the dross comes to the top. You skim it off, and then you have a really nice soup. And basically, that's all the dross is coming up for us to look at on every level. So this is just one of many things that are starting to come out, and people are starting to recognize, how dark it is and how dark it's been. So, when you factor in the everything, going back to the water with, 850 carcinogens in it to 1,000 some places, the Flint water where they found, they know that there's over 2,000 babies that are going to be brain damaged and, with all the lead in the water, and they've known it for a year, and they gave bottled water to all the people that work for the city, but everybody else, they just left to rot and drink the water. And so now they're having severe, health problems and deformed babies and everything else. when they've known about this for some time. It's all about saving a buck and getting water from a source that was contaminated and adding it to the city water. So again, the mayor, and all these guys are having to deal with this, and the governors, and they knew about it. They knew about it, and they just let it continue. So it just goes to show is that the people that we have put in charge to take care of our well-being are self-serving. They're just looking out for themselves and the corporations, and they're going to do whatever is necessary to avoid the truth or avoid what needs to be done, to serve the people and to clean things up. They're gonna side on the people making the messes and everything else. That's just what they do. But anyway, that's another one. I mean, all of these things are coming up, and it's just one after another after another. It's like never ending. But again, that's part of the process. I'm also seeing a lot of things that, and I want to tell the callers, I'll get to you in just a minute, but there's a lot of this stuff surfacing about Putin now, and they're trying to demonize him right now because he's taken a stand against the Illuminati and the mainstream media and all this. He's exposing them for what they are, and he's stopping their programs and their wars in the Middle East. All of these things, 911 is exposing everything. So now there's going to be a huge attempt to demonize him. So don't fall for that one. I know he's no saint. I never said he was, but the moves he's doing right now are far superior and better, for the planet than any of the moves that are being made by our own political system, which is actually totally contrary to the health and well-being of America. So anyway, I think we should, put a Purple Heart on the guy, give him a congressional medal. But I'm really seeing. I tell you where I see this end up going. It's going to get so ugly, and it already has, that eventually the people are going to either riot, and the military is going to step up and side with the people and just clean out Congress and clean out the politicians and put an end to Wall Street and all this other nonsense. And anybody who has acted, in a way that was harmful to humanity or against the Constitution or universal law, and that's where it's going. I'm really hoping it does happen in a peaceful, orderly manner. It's going to happen one way or the other, and so the reason why is the energies that are coming in are not going to allow this to happen. They're not going to allow the dark arts to continue. They're not going to allow the gross uneven dispersal of wealth. They're not going to allow the unbridled greed and the total disrespect for life, even human life, even children and mothers and everything else. It's just insane. So anyway, if you take the water, you look at the past, what they've done to the water, and now what they're doing to the air with the chemtrails, what they're doing to the food supply with the GMOs, everything is a concerted effort. And now the vaccines have Nagales and things like that, and they're putting people on timers and creating cancer. They're actually, when this goes into your system, you cannot fight cancer. We all have cancer in us to one degree or another, but our immune system holds it back. Well, this totally collapses the immune system, and vitamin D, being able to absorb vitamin D, things like that. And so basically, this is a huge sterilization program, the inoculations. And so all of this stuff is pointing to one thing. And people go, why would they do this to themselves? Why? You got to realize you can't think like these people. You don't know who these people are at the top. You have to realize that most people are ignorant, and they're just going to do what they're told, and wherever their paycheck is coming from, they're going to do what they're told, whoever's writing that check, basically, but a lot of them are starting to figure out and getting fed up with the whole thing. So anyway, so that's unfortunate, but when you go up to the top of the hierarchical ladder of power and wealth, it gets darker and darker and darker until you go into reptilian demonic energies, and that's why these inhuman things are happening. Because these beings survive on the pain and the suffering, and that's the world they live in. They love those energies. They want to suppress the awakening and healing process, and they're doing everything they can to do that. So, like diminishing our health and creating a lot of pain and suffering, and the wars, the war and disease profiteers, all of this stuff, it all feeds their empire and their program, and their empire and their program is coming to an end. So we're seeing from the top down this is happening. So the bottom line is that that's what's happening. There's a major cleanup going on from the top down. The Archon network is being totally dissolved. The grid, that is the draconian grid, and has been holding people down for so long, is being torn apart. And all of these corporations and these tyrants, that are just basically parasites and predators and pedophiles, they're not frequency specific to the evolution of Earth. And so one way or another, their karma is going to come home. They're going to be exposed and to their own demise, so they are going to implode and collapse. And that's the big picture. So there's no way around it. And even the scientists now have figured this out, and they're going, whoa, we're getting bombarded by cosmic rays and neutrons and gamma rays and everything. And they're showing this huge graph of this energy that's coming in right now. Well, guess what? We've been talking about that since 1982 and the effects of this. So basically, we're moving into a more energetic place in space. The Earth has to adjust to that energy. It affects consciousness and DNA, everything. And so there's a huge shift, a huge quantum leap, you might say, in evolution that's going to happen around this. In those of a baser frequency that want to continue with the tyranny game and the separation game aren't going to make the shift. And that's the big picture. That's basically what's going on. So anyway, I'm going to open this up and see if we can get some calls coming in. We don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to get that off my mind and tell people, what's happening in Australia. It's awesome. We're having amazing ships just flying right over the house that I'm in. We're having black helicopters fly over the house. We're getting chemtrail. We're getting everything. Everything that was happening at the other place is happening here. It's a global thing. But what's really interesting is everywhere we go, we've had massive ships fly over us. And so if you go to esetiaustralia.org, you can catch up on what's happening over here. So be sure and do that. And you can see a lot of the footage and the videos. So I don't know if we still have, I think we have Emmeline on line 1. I hope so. I hope she's still on the line. So we'll see if we can bring her on from California.
I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you so much. I love what you're saying. And just feel like if we just would remember our own sovereignty, we wouldn't have so many problems with the government, because we really don't need it, do we? But I really have a question about, right? I mean, if we understood who we were, our heart would just guide us to live in love and light. And, it's interesting that we're going this far to figure that out. So, but I do have a question about, I had a ship land right in front of me. And I tried to talk, I stood in line for a long time, and I tried to talk to this prominent UFO guy, and he sort of blew me off. It was really kind of weird, right? I went to one of the expos, and I was waiting in line forever, and he blew me off. And I've had 2 huge experiences. One, I was about 13 with my mom, and we saw a ship. We were on the Pomona Freeway, and we both said, oh my God, what is that? Right? We lost time. We lost 2 hours of time. But I never remembered anything that happened in that one. But this other one, it was later, many years later. I'm driving home from work, and I heard "go a different way." And I was like, okay, and I follow that. I do that. I follow that, and I was like, okay, sitting at a stop sign, and I was sitting with a guy in the van next to me. There was a guy next to me. It was 11:30 at night, and I thought, okay, so this light was coming over the mountain. I thought, wow, that's really weird. It looks like a helicopter. Anyway, it ended up getting closer and closer. We could hear it, and it was a ship. And I turned to the guy. I rolled my window down. I go, do you see that? He goes, it's aliens. He freaked out and he left. And I was like, well, that was weird. So it went by, and it landed in the park kind of next. I had to make a U-turn to kind of go to it.
Yeah.
And it was small. It was kind of small, but the thing that kind of makes me want to ask you about is, so I make a U-turn, my mind is telling me it's got to be someone's toy. It's got to be a remote control. But it was 11:30 at night. Nobody was in the park, right?
Yeah.
I go in, I drive in the park, I see it. It was sort of like hovering above the grass, and I could hear it. And this peace came over me like nothing. I can't even explain it in words. And I asked, should I get out and investigate? And I heard, no. Now you know. And I drove away sort of like I was in a trance. That was it. I mean, and I thought, well, what was that? Plus it was small, like 6 by 6, or, maybe it was a little bit bigger, but I was, so weirdly in a trance. Why would that happen?
That is pretty typical of what happens. And the reason you're being contacted is because they're probably, your Star Nation family. And I'm sorry you're treated that way. If you do call, the National UFO Reporting Center, like Peter Davenport, you're probably going to get ridiculed. He's going to say, tell me when the little green men come out. He makes statements like that. And basically he's a Russian translator for NSA. And that's a government-controlled organization. So, he's not really there to document what's going on. We've had serious problems with him where we've had teachers and, Air Force base commanders and triple PhD Boeing engineers and all in the field, and these UFOs come over. And so I go, well, call it in, and and they call it in, and he won't even take the call or even put it up on his site. And he's moved sightings with 14 witnesses on Mount Adams. He's moved them over to Mount Rainier to do everything he can to keep any information coming out about the ranch, about the East City Ranch and the contact going on there. So, he's shown his true colors again and again and again redundantly. So, I don't know why people haven't figured this out yet, because there is a long history of this, and why they keep inviting him to these UFO conferences, which is, again, a lot of these have been compromised as well. So there's very few people that are real in the field that have a high degree of integrity that haven't sold out. Unfortunately, they're not in they're in it to just make money. They're in to keep a little, a network going.
He was really kind of rude to me. He was kind of rude and sort of like, yeah. Well, they just. He goes, what nationality are you? And I told him, he goes, yeah, they just follow you around. That's all. And I was like, seriously? After I waited 2 hours in line to talk to you? You know what I mean? I really wanted to know everything. I was like, look, I had this exciting experience. It was kind of weird because I was really, the one time that my mom and we lost time was really weird, but this time was just so peaceful, but nothing.
Yeah, I want to hear more. I want to hear more about the story. Can you email me?
I will.
Go ahead and
I was
email me.
Steve up in Washington, actually. But yeah, I will.
Yeah, email me and I'll get back to you because I want to hear more about the story. I've got about 20 people on the line here. I know I'll be able to get through everybody, but it sounds like an awesome story. I definitely want to hear more about it, and I'm sorry that you were treated that way, but you're one of many people that have called in and that have been treated very rudely and just dismissed, basically. So don't take it personal. It's you're getting an education as to who's who in the field of ufology.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks a lot. And thanks so much for everything you do.
Yeah, send me an email because I want to hear more about it, and maybe I'll get you on the air and document your story.
Oh, cool. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Okay, we've got Thomas from California on line 2. Thomas, are you with us?
Yeah, James. How you doing?
Doing great.
Hello?
Welcome to the show.
Good. Hey, while you're over there, did you happen to hook up with Santos Bonacci?
No, I haven't. I've been just so swamped here, and I'm getting a lot of things done. We actually, because of Peter here with ECETI Australia, he has some major talents as far as, I got all my books on ebooks now with Lulu, and I've got all this other work done that we've had our nose to the grindstone getting these things finished and then doing workshops and classes and everything else. So I haven't had a chance to, but I'm not sure. I am traveling up the coast next week to go to Sydney and Brisbane and Coffs Harbour and all these other places. So, it looks, I'm going to be meeting all these people. I'm not even sure who's going to show up there. Hopefully I will, though. I think he's an awesome guy.
Yeah, he really is. He's been very kind to me. He's Skyped me once, twice, and he has a lot of information that's relevant. But anyways,
Yeah, we have the show. I've had him on the show a few times.
Are you familiar with Peggy Kane or John Kelly?
Yes. Yeah, John has spent a lot of time at the ranch, and especially in the field at night, and he's got some amazing footage of UFOs. Here at the at ECETI, he's got some great evidence of ships landing and interacting with people and everything. So yeah, John's been a major, part of ECETI and getting information out.
But are you familiar with his reverse speech information that he's utilizing?
Yeah, I am. They did reverse speech on me, and it was pretty hilarious because he said I was one of the first people that said the same thing forward as backwards because I'm my subconscious. Yeah, but it went more in depth, like when the big gold ships came over, I was on Art Bell show, and he asked me, well, who's on the big golden ships? And I said, I'm not sure, but they feel very ancient and godlike beings. And when they reverse speech me, I said Sailor Vishnu is his name. And so they took a picture of Mary's energy coming in and all these little blue nature spirits below her, And I said, I think those little blue energies are nature spirits. And then in reverse speech, it said Mary's elves say to love her. And so it was pretty hilarious. All this other stuff was coming out, but it still was aligned with what I was saying. It just went a little deeper.
That is awesome. That is incredible. That really is. And what you were saying earlier about Finnegan and I think Finnegan, I've followed that closely, and I watched the video and the story his family put out, or the message they put out, was just heart-wrenching, and it's terrible what's going on. Anna von Reitz, the judge up in Alaska, has really laid out what this government has done. In 1871, when they incorporated, the Rothschilds took this place over, and it's hard to get people to believe that. I mean, even with everything that's going on, but there has to be an uprising in this country. There really has to be. We should be going to these people in Michigan and rescuing them. Somebody has to do something. So I'm just real frustrating to see this. And
well, it's going to happen. It just has to get ugly. Things like this have to happen. On a higher level, he probably came in to do this. And you really think about it. He's like his life story. As much as they're going to try to throw dirt on this guy and demonize him, he had 50 foster kids. I mean, come on.
It's incredible.
The guy. These are pretty wealthy ranchers, but they're very solid people. And his community services and everything else, his whole family loved him and everything else. He was getting his land stolen and was fed up and said, I'm not going to stand for this. This is America. And so basically that's the bottom line. And I think just because he is the perfect person to play this role, put it that way, because of his past and how much he's loved and how many people he's served and helped and his whole life. He's like, it's going to look so bad for these guys. And it was an ambush, period. I mean, that's what Hillary does. She just kill everybody, no witnesses. I don't want anything coming out, that's going to tie me into this mess. And so as soon as I found out she was involved, I went, oh shit, there's going to be a massacre. As soon as I I heard her name, I go, this is going to get ugly.
Yeah, it sure did.
Sad.
It sure did.
Yeah.
Really
it's sad that, we even need to have to talk about this. I would rather not talk about this stuff. I'd rather focus on something else. A lot of people get upset about it, but, you can't ignore what's going on, and it affects everybody. And so, we all have to get behind this and not let his life go to waste, like he.
Right. Well, that's why the mainstream media ignores it.
Yeah.
because they don't want it out there. I mean, it's
it's going to get out there.
California.
There's no way they're going to stop this from. It's going to get out there to everybody, and no matter what, it's going into the collective consciousness. And there's some major beings that are making sure this information gets out. They're making sure that everything comes to the surface. So it's just a matter of time before it's the done deal. It's over with. I got to go and grab some other people here. Thomas, thanks for calling in.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Anyway, so hey, thanks for calling in, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. We got Jennifer from California on line 3. Jennifer, are you still with us?
Yeah, but it's not Jennifer. It's Trisha.
Oh, okay. They have Jennifer here, but that works. So what do you have to share with us?
I have a question that's a little bit off subject, but 2016 is supposed to be the time where the dollar supposedly collapsed, and I wanted to know if you had any insight on that, and if you felt like gold and silver, tangible gold and silver that you hold on, is a good thing, or because I don't know what people are going to do here if they wake up one day and half their bank account's gone.
Yeah. Well, from the people I know, and I know some people on some very high levels that are involved in this, and what they're saying now is that there's a treasury note. It's already done. It's already been printed. It's in the banks already, and they're going to phase out the Federal Reserve note, and the treasury note will be backed by gold and the assets of the country. And then on top of that, they're going to they'll just phase it out. It's like the money in your account will be given out in treasury notes after this, and then the whatever money's out there in people's fruit jars and things like that, wherever they're saving it, you bring it in and you can exchange it for the treasury note, and that's, if everything goes right, there's not going to be a lot of disorder and people losing a lot of money, and that's the way they're trying to make it happen. But these other New World Order bankster boys are doing all they can to stop that and to hang it up and hijack it. And they're, even trying to transfer these monies to make this happen, to take care of that, are being blocked on every level, by our own present administration, which actually serve the bankers. So the very people that should be letting this go and freeing this money up, that's geared to help the people, to pull us out of poverty and all these other problems, are the ones that are blocking this. And so it's just a matter of time. They are going to be exposed. They are going to go down, and this is going to come through. So that's the way I see it. There might be a few hiccups in the process, but that's the way it's being explained to me.
So you don't feel like really the dollar is going to be devalued too much? You think it's pretty safe that we'll just wake up and basically the money will be switched over to treasury notes?
That's what they're telling me, in the highest levels. Was what they're telling me is it can't be stopped. It's a plan that's all set up. But, I am not sure. I know some people are going to take a hit on this, and the people that are going to take a hit on this are probably the ones that have made their money, through war and disease profiteering things. All those corporations are going to pretty much collapse, when this happens. So if you're involved in that, you're going to take a hit.
What about the stock market, though? Look at how it's just plummeting. The stock market.
Yeah. Well, get out of it. You shouldn't be in the stock market. You should stay out of that. It's a game. The stock market is like gambling, and whenever you gamble, you lose, basically, because they didn't get those giant skyscrapers in Vegas by losing. So it's the same thing.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, James, for your insight. I appreciate it.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for calling. We'll see if we're going to bring Charles in from New York on line 4, hopefully.
Hi,
Charles,
I'm
are you
here.
with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Do we get the name right? Is this Charles?
Yeah, Charles in New York.
Okay.
How you doing?
Good.
I have a question. What do you feel about all that Corey Good is sharing? It's pretty compelling. We've been watching Gaia TV and Michael Hellinger, but mostly Corey's testimony about his experiences and what's going on.
I haven't caught up with that because I've been in Australia for a while, and I'm, on these tours and everything. So I'll have to look into that. But some of it I've heard, and it pretty much corresponds with what I know. I just can't say anything right now because I'm just not up to date on what he's talking about, and I haven't had access to computers as much as I'd like to because what's happening here is I'm getting hammered. I had to reload Skype like 3 times. I had Skype taken off of my computer completely, as well as my call recorder, and so I'm back up now again. So we're getting all kinds of crazy stuff, and when I get home, I'll be able to dig more into these things. But like anybody, I even say my own information, people need to come from the heart and feel it and see if it feels right for you and see if it empowers you with new knowledge. And
his story is extraordinary. He seems to have a deep honesty and integrity and humility in all that he's sharing. It's an amazing history that he had with the MyLab program, and then how it's all come back to him, and he seems to be in a very pure place to share his history and what he's being guided to tell the world. It's amazing. So,
I'll probably get him on the show one of these days or something and find out more about what he's up to. I've just been so busy with this. The things I'm doing here in Australia are mind blowing. I'm working with the elders on the different tribes here and having amazing experiences. And there's a big movement here going on that I'm in the middle of that I don't even want to talk about until it happens. Okay,
beautiful. Well, God bless you for all you're doing. Thanks, James.
All right, thank you. We've only got about 30 seconds left. I'm going to see, if we got 30 seconds left, I'll have to cut it off. So, sorry about that, Chris and Wendy. Be sure and call back or send me an email, at ufojames@gorge.net, and I'll see if I can answer whatever questions you have. Because unfortunately, we are running out of time on the show here. So, but anyway, be sure and check out the GoFundMe project there. And I'm sure Ash will have that up on the thing, the East City Ranch GoFundMe project, and whatever else is going on. We're going to have a lot of new information coming out here real soon. We're redoing everything. But when I get back in March, it's going to be a major cleanup process going on there and then getting everything organized again. So anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. Pay attention, get behind these people that are trying to bring out the information and, support the universal law. And we all need to step up to the plate and do our part. Because, it's we're the ones we've been waiting for. We're the ETs we've been waiting for, and we're all here now. The invasion happened a long time ago, and it's us. And so we need to wake up and stand tall in our own divinity. But anyway, I'm signing off. This is James Gilliland with As You Wish Talk Radio. Have a great evening, and, pay attention. A lot of things going on. Good night.